Hey everyone, this is Steve with another episode of Keep 'em Rolling. And for this episode, I just want to talk about some of the weird things that make their ways into your collections. This is one of those items that made its way into my collection. It's, just your standard late 1930s lunchbox. Now, I got this a little over a year and a half ago. My family and I had gone to the lake shore for the day, and that evening, while we were in this kind of quaint little lakeshore town, we were getting dinner, and while we were waiting for our table, I noticed across the street an antique shop. So I ran over there real quick while they were getting our table ready and went through it. Not a lot of military. There was no military. And I've noticed that more and more lately, that you go into these shops and there's lots of other things like fishing tackle, dishes, clothing, but just absolutely zero militaria. Except for this. Down in the basement, I saw this and it just called to me. I don't know if it was the navy gray coloring or the stenciling on it. It's very navy as far as the stenciling goes, very military, Schumacher, and it's stenciled both here and on the back side as well. So heavily stenciled. The tag on the lunchbox said it belonged to a World War II veteran. So I took a chance, $14. I just liked it. It just called to me. Brought it home and I began to do my research. Now the first thing I did was I just put his name into the computer just to see what would come up. And sure enough, there was an obituary for him. He actually lived in the town where I found the lunchbox. He'd passed away a few years ago. And the obituary stated that he was very active in the local maritime museum, that he had been in World War II in the Navy, and that he had been a skipper aboard a PT boat. Now, I love the PT boats. In fact, down here in front, this little PT boat model here. This is actually a World War II cardboard toy. During World War II, to conserve material, they stopped making toys out of metal and they went to more of wood and cardboard. And this is just, you can see it's just a very simple kind of snap together. The person could punch it out and put it together, but it's just a neat little PT boat. You can see it's even got some water damage to it. I'm just amazed something like this would survive, all these years without being destroyed. So, little PT boat, but I love PT boats. So I went to my reference collection. Now, I encourage all of you collectors, buy reference books. It's fun to spend your money on this. I know it's hard to spend money on reference material when you could buy militaria, but it will come in so handy. And one of the books that I had purchased was this one right here, At Close Quarters, PT Boats in the United States Navy by Captain Robert J. Buckley, Jr., forward by President John F. Kennedy, 1962. It's a very dry book. If you look at the cover, Department of the Navy. It's a very thick book. It's got a good index in it. Lots of great information on PT boats and their functions and so forth. I think I paid $15 for the book when it was all said and done. And I went to the index, and lo and behold, Schumacher was listed. Now, what I found out about him was absolutely amazing. Apparently, Schumacher was in the Philippines with his PT boat number 32. He was the captain or skipper of PT boat 32, and in those days after Pearl Harbor, he spent his time harassing Japanese shipping. Now, in March of 1942, the Philippines were falling, and it was decided that MacArthur was to leave. Schumacher was part of the entourage that got MacArthur out of the Philippines. Now, what they were going to do is they were actually going to take MacArthur out via a submarine called the Permit. However, word had gotten to MacArthur's staff that the Japanese they had found out MacArthur was trying to leave, and they were going crazy trying to capture him. And they felt that if they waited too much longer for the Permit to get there, that it might be too late. So they decided to use the PT boats. Now, Schumacher, he was a Lieutenant JG. Schumacher, it was not his boat that ferried MacArthur, but he was part of the entourage. He had high-level officials on his boat as well. And what happened is on March 12th, 1942, at 5 p.m., they headed out of the Philippines and they rendezvoused, all these PT boats, and they immediately headed out to an additional rendezvous point, if you will. On the way, they became separated. That's why they had this additional rendezvous point. The rendezvous point was on March 13th at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, the problem was Schumacher's boat had been severely damaged and just run down over the last couple of months. There were issues with the motors, there was issues with the gyro, there were just lots of issues plaguing the boat. On the journey, in the early morning of March 13th, around 5, 6 in the morning, just as dawn was breaking, Schumacher's crew noticed that they were being pursued by a destroyer, a Japanese destroyer. They took evasive action. One of the things they did was they cut loose the big 50-gallon drums of extra fuel they had on their deck to try and get more speed. The destroyer kept closing on them, so they did an evasive maneuver to go head-on towards the destroyer in attempts to, take it on in combat. And it was realized when they did this that it wasn't a destroyer, it was actually an additional PT boat that was part of this entourage, if you will. And they talked about how in the early morning light with the ocean and the reflectivity of the sun and so forth, that somehow it had magnified that other PT boat to make it look much larger, like it was a destroyer. So PT Boat 32 makes it to the rendezvous point. They assess the boat and they determine that it just can't go any farther. And so they divide up his high-ranking passengers amongst the other PT boats. He and his crew are ordered to stay behind and make repairs while the other PT boats head out. Meantime, while he's making repairs that morning, the submarine Permit arrives at this rendezvous point. Lieutenant J.G. Schumacher talks it over with the captain of the Permit. They decide that this PT boat cannot go any farther. PT Boat 32 is just too far gone. The deck had cracked from where the fuel drums had sat. There were lots of other issues. So they decided it was much safer to scuttle PT Boat 32 and leave the rendezvous point via the submarine Permit. So Schumacher orders his crew to pack up their baggage. They remove everything they can off PT Boat 32. They disable all important components, and then they sunk the ship via submarine deck fire. They used the deck gun on the submarine to sink PT Boat 32, and Schumacher departed via the submarine Permit. Now, the question is, this lunchbox, was it aboard PT Boat 32? I would like to imagine that. That's in my imagination that his wife gave this to him when, he shipped out, and he carried this with him in the Philippines aboard his PT boat, and then it was with him on this harrowing escape from the Philippines, and then as a last, effort, he took it off the PT boat when he boarded the Permit and kept it with him as one of those treasures. Can we ever prove this? Chances are no. But at the very least, this lunchbox gave me a tie to a PT boat skipper, and it gave me a chance to research a really fantastic piece of our history that I probably wouldn't have looked at. So, I guess my point with all of this, those unusual things, look for them. I mean, they're out there and they're fantastic, and they're not a lot of money. We tend to go for the really big glamorous items. Sometimes these very subtle items are even more glamorous. I would rather own this than an unidentified Navy uniform with all the bells and whistles. This here, it just screams so much more history. And the other thing is, buy the reference material. At the very least, if you don't want to buy it, check with your local library. See what stuff they have. See what stuff they can request for you. Our library actually does something called interlibrary loan, where if they don't have it, we can look on a catalog and they can request it from another library, which takes a couple of extra weeks, but you can get some pretty fantastic things. So, I would love to hear from all of you about some of the more unusual things in your collection, but that is my tale. This has been Steve with another episode of Keep 'em Rollin', and this is going to seem redundant, but I want to remind all of you collectors out there to keep them rolling yourself, and I look forward to giving you more videos in the future. Thanks for watching.